Odysseus! Feel free to add some stuff. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And our age of bronze is collapsing. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film The Odyssey.
We interrupt the Cusack attack summer season of
Cusack-a-sance
to bring you this special broadcast.
3,000 years in the making.
Christopher Nolan has returned, and we will all bow in silence like Odysseus to Agamemnon.
As Nolan intended. What the fuck is happening? Shahir, we haven't been in this studio together in probably a month.
What's weird is I came from the home of Odysseus. Like, I've traveled 20 but years.
You did. We did not record in Greece.
We should have. It's interesting. I was in Greece for the last 2 weeks on vacation, and that is why we did the Cusack attack. Is that what we're calling it, by the way?
Cusack attack, Cusack-a-sance, Summer of John.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever it is.
Whatever we say in the episodes, Topan fam, that's what it is.
Yeah. But I was in Greece, and I have not actually, it's been strange. Maybe Greece does this to you, like Calypso kind of makes you forget, is that I forgot about movies for a little bit.
How much lotus you eat?
I did probably too much. But interestingly, I was in I was in Crete.
Yeah.
The home of where Odysseus kind of spends a lot of time. And there's no sense of interest in the Odyssey whatsoever there. Like, we'd go past movie theaters and they would have like one poster, but it would be a poster in amongst Toy Story 5 and stuff, as if it was just like an ordinary, thing. And I don't know if it's Greece in particular is just like, there's so much other stuff to do than go to the movies.
Well, I think it almost is like, it's essentially this story has been focused around that area for 3,000 years. So they're probably kind of sick of it. If I would say this, maybe if it ever gets to the point of like, well, actually, I guess it has. The box office is in on this thing. It obviously is a cultural moment. I wonder if as that sort of keeps rolling forward, if essentially the box office of it will kind of roll that way.
The New York Times ran a piece where they went to local Greek people to ask them like what they thought about the movie, and generally they were pretty positive on it. I mean, like there was an Odyssey story that came out just last year or the year before with Ralph Fiennes as Odysseus, and I think. Maybe the thing is that this has been adopted as an English tradition more than a Greek tradition.
It has. Yeah. And this telling of the Odyssey is, in my opinion, and we'll get into
Boston tradition.
Well, it's very American coded.
Oh, I mean, look, Matt Damon speaking in an American accent. And what I think is interesting is that everyone's following suit around Matt Damon. I think maybe that was there's some conversation around like the accents. And I've had this sort of claw on my side about doing a historical piece but not trying the accents, and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in The Last Duel is the one I often point to, which is like sit in France, but merry old England, merry old France.
I very much appreciated in this one that no one was doing a British accent.
Even the British actors,
decided to just not.
Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, I think they're all.
I gotta find my dad.
Yeah, your dad's forgotten about you, bro. But I generally think what that is everyone's anchoring themselves around Odysseus himself, which is Matt Damon, and he's not going to. They made a choice that he's not going to do that accent because that would be distracting, perhaps. I don't know if I also think it is because, I mean, we're going to find out more as there's more interviews and, all the stuff that, whatever Christopher Nolan wants to tell us. But I think it is the way that I've read this film. It is a very of the time 2026, essentially oddly very American story. Yeah. And I think this circles back to something I started discussing in Train Dreams. We talked about the fact that Train Dreams felt like the central I believe it was Granger. I've forgotten the character's name. I actually watched. That's the film I watched on a plane.
Oh, really?
How'd
that survive on whatever tiny screen you?
Great. So So side note.
Yeah.
When I go on planes now, I will watch stuff with I won't put in headphones. I'll just put in subtitles, and that way I can. And it'll be a film that I've definitely seen before. Okay. So that I can just kind of glance at it. I'm not distracted by the projection. I'm not trying to listen. I'm just trying to the movie's there and I'm watching it. I did that and Catch Me If You Can. Just with subtitles on, just so I can kind of
And both those movies took you all the way to Greece?
Yeah. Oh, well, and sleep.
Yeah, I was going to say, in your waking hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very uncomfortable. I have very uncomfortable flights the whole way through.
How long's that flight?
It's 11 hours, and I was crammed in an economy seat. And what was funny, and this is another side note to the side note.
We haven't talked in so long.
Greece is a very basketball
focused place.
Yeah. I think I got off and there was like the Greek basketball team was like in the airport. And it was weird for me because I'm 6'4", but I was like walking around and I was like, these dudes are big. You know, like
Nice.
I was like, these dudes are cool. But so when I was in Greece, everywhere I went, people were very aware of my height and like would comment on it everywhere. Like people on the like shop owners, people on the street would like stop me and talk about the height because I think they're so basketball focused that they were like, "Oh, you have something you could offer."
Yeah.
So
they were the Lastrygonians.
The Dragonians?
The Lastrygonians, the giant metal giants.
Yeah. Is that what they call them?
I always say like Lastrygonians, Lastrygonians. I always butcher everything. Basically, especially when I'm doing extra mythology or extra history, I'll do my guest pass if the pronunciation's not in the script. Yeah. And then the writer will come back and be like, "You stupid idiot, say it like this." And I'll be like, "I'm sorry," and I'll fix it.
Let's fold back into the first side note. What was the first side note about Odyssey in Greece? Like
Train dreams,
no interest.
Yes.
With Train Dreams, was the idea of like modernizing a character whose sensibilities are actually very different to our own time. You know, like in Train Dreams, his understanding of the world, particularly around both race, ethnicity, and sexuality, like are very different to ours. And there's some interesting stuff in that book, in the Train Dreams book, that does not make it to screen. And then for the Odyssey, I read the Emily Wilson adaptation while I was in Greece as well. So I may not have been thinking about movies, but I was thinking about movies.
Yeah, I have started, but I'm nowhere near finished doing the essentially the EV Ryu version, which is then revisited by his son, DCH Ryu.
I think that one is what people have said would be closest to the original Greek reading.
Yes, that was so. Jamie and I bought two different versions. Jamie is reading the one that you have, and I decided I just like this cover too. I like beautiful. This. It's a really beautiful hardcover with like a bunch of waves, and it's gorgeous.
I found the Odyssey really easy to read. I read it like in like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. I haven't read it since high school.
I've never read it. So this is the thing. I know so little about Greek mythology. Like it was not taught in our schools. I did not read these books as a kid. This was not a big thing for me.
On that note, did you, especially when you were either reading it or when you watched it, did you pick up on things that have essentially been taken or permeated through other moments in cinema or other stories? Like for instance, one thing that I feel like is a story that is taken out of the Odyssey a lot is the stringing of the bow. Like little moments like that. Did those feel familiar to you? Like, oh, well, this feels like other things before, or are you just so far not in that world from like what you learned in school and like all that stuff? The only thing
about the stringing of the bow is that I think it's the logo of a film production company.
It is. He shoots with the axis. I can't remember which one.
I can't remember which production company it is. But generally, my prime reference for the Odyssey itself is the Coen Brothers, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Which I want to rewatch.
Yeah. That, and perhaps even Inside Llewyn Davis. That is my central understanding of that era. But like the Cyclops, there's a great episode of The Simpsons where they do the Odyssey, and like that is also primarily where I got the Odyssey.
I just found out the actress who plays Sindel in Mortal Kombat Annihilation actually played the main siren in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Didn't know that.
I thought Elle Macpherson was one of the sirens in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou.
There's three of them.
Maybe, I don't know. So we will butcher Greek mythology. And then before we go on, I was away during Supergirl and The Invite. I was really excited to see The Invite. How did fill us in, get people to go back to those episodes?
Great. You can go listen to both of those. They're up right now on all the places, on the YouTubes, on the Nebulas, on the Spotify's, on all the feeds you get. Also, hey, by the way, subscribe, do the things. If you've listened to 2 or 3 episodes and you haven't done that, or leave a review or say something, leave something on the YouTube page.
Yeah.
Just comment on there.
People are commenting there.
But the let's see. The Invite was super fun. Chelsea White guested on that one.
Did it live up to that's the movie I'm most excited about seeing?
It's a very, very, very good movie.
Right. There seems some like hesitation here.
Well, no, it's one of those movies that when I watched it, I was like, this is phenomenal. Oh my gosh. And then I never thought about it again. Right. So like it didn't stick with me like some movies do. Right. So I would suggest it to anyone, including you, to go see that movie.
I'm 100% going to go see that.
I think actually I'll say this, super minor spoiler. The beginning of the film sets up way more than just tone, and it's really fun.
Okay.
So that's really great. And then Supergirl sure was fine.
Yeah.
Nando came on.
It feels like it's evaporated from.
It has.
Public
and
consciousness entirely.
I think it was getting a lot more hatred from the wrong places as per usual.
Yeah.
But it is essentially a mid-level story that feels like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie that doesn't have the same pop of color and or like real hype cinematography or locations that the Guardians movies do. And it felt like truly, and that maybe this is what the DCU might be, a James Gunn impression. Right. Was it a good James Gunn impression? I think so. But is that something that people are clamoring for right now? I don't think so. And it sucks because Millie Alcock was phenomenal in it. Like she carried that thing, and I felt like she got the most hate. And I was just like, this is stupid, everybody. Oh, and the villain was pure dog shit. Right. They took an actual really interesting villain from Woman of Tomorrow, the comic, and they butchered the meaning behind the entire story.
This is a Gavin O'Connor film, right?
I think so, yeah. So anyway, it's fine. Again, I would say don't see that. You don't need to.
I'm not in a rush to see that movie. And then while we were away, while we were here, the Avengers Doomsday trailer dropped.
There sure is a trailer.
Yeah. Where's your hype level?
I watched it a bunch of times, but like at the same time, like it's neat to see my action figures again. Mm-hmm. But and I like the voice that RDJ is doing for Doom. I think it's fun. And there's some really hype moments in the trailer, but I don't want to know the story of the movie. What I want to know is that there'll be a complete story that's not like still being written right now. Like, and Marvel has shown over the course of time that they're really not good at that at this point. So like, I'm hoping that with the Russos maybe back in their wheelhouse, like Marvel and the Russos don't seem to function on incredibly interesting projects to me when they are not together.
Right.
So
the Russos have released like 3 movies.
Yeah. And I sure have seen none of them.
Right.
So I just hope that it's good. Also, it seems so strange because Spider-Man comes out in like 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And that movie seems like, and maybe it's the Odyssey hype with Tom Holland in that, or maybe it's because Doomsday just dropped, but what a weird little like, well, no one's talking about this new Spider-Man movie at all.
Yeah. It's like
they've dropped 5 trailers.
Right.
And I'm like, what? And it's funny that the thing I was predicting there, and we will talk about the Odyssey, I promise, it was that like there's a shot of Spider-Man in the trailers like jumping and fighting against ninjas in a weird thing, and the comp looked odd. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Right. And I was like, oh, I know. Yeah. Hulk is in the movie. Like that's they've temporarily cut the Hulk away from this thing, right?
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they didn't even have to wait for the fucking movie to come out. The next one has Hulk in that shot. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
cool. Like, at least save it. It's just, I don't know. I have high hopes for that too, but I just don't.
Here's just an interesting like side fact to it is like my son is on summer vacation, and we were walking back and we saw a billboard for a Spider-Man Brand New Day, and I was like,
that's right, yeah.
And I was like, oh, you haven't watched any of the Tom Holland movies, like, would you like to watch those in anticipation for Brand New Day? And he was like, no, the brand, and this was his confusion. He was like, Brand New Day is the new Miles Morales story, right? And I was like, no, it's the Tom Holland ones. You haven't watched any of those movies. And he was like, oh, then I'm not interested. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I'm offering to let you watch 3 Marvel movies in a row if you want to watch them. And he's like, nah, I'm not interested. Yeah. I'm cool. And I was like, oh, okay.
I wonder if this one will be Tom's last one. It'd be interesting to do that.
That was a huge, like Far From Home was the last one? Or Homecoming?
No Way Home.
No Way Home.
Yeah. Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home.
I did not enjoy that movie whatsoever. I watched it at home by myself. So like all the moments which were designed to be applause driven moments like fell flat for me. But as I understand it, that movie made $1 billion.
It did. And listen, I love all 3 of those movies. I've rewatched them a bunch. I still like them. And this is the weird thing. I'm not super hyped for this one. And this is the part of a Spider-Man story that is really interesting to me. Marvel butchered when everyone forgot who Peter Parker was or had to, in the comics, he sacrificed his marriage to Mephisto to save Aunt May, who was like 98 and dying already. So then everyone forgot, and then they weren't together anymore. So this is kind of a combination of all. It's like Spider-Man at his core, kind of alone and rebuilding himself, although already being situated as a superhero. So that's an interesting time for me in the comics. But again, I'm having a real hard. I like that the Punisher's in it. I think that's fun. I think that I like their dynamic.
Oh, John, and they were in the
so many. Yeah, John, Zendaya, and Tom are all in the Odyssey.
Yeah, Batman's in here as well. Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
You know, like
they're all here.
Everyone's here.
Jesus
so,
Christ.
and I want to bring it back to the Odyssey. I think there's something interesting about the perpetual machine that is the MCU. I go back and listen to our episodes. I've kind of sort of iterated this point several times over, but there's something about it which feels like we're getting the band back together to tell another story, whereas the Odyssey feels like there's such a hype and excitement for whatever it is Christopher Nolan is doing next that sort of can carry the marketing of it. And there's been an interesting thing watching the marketing for the Odyssey, which is I always say the best marketing strategies are ones that don't have to be reconceived against the movie. Like in this case, everyone seems actually genuinely excited by the fact that they're in a Christopher Nolan movie. They're aware of what Christopher Nolan is as right now, which can be sort of argued to be he is the engine of the industry. If you go back and listen to our Oppenheimer episode or our Dunkirk or our Tenet episode, I talk about the fact that like there's this incredible meeting around Oppenheimer where Nolan has decided to leave, I believe, Warner Brothers, and because of he's sort of upset about the way Tenet was released, and invites all the studio heads to his compound and says, you've got 2 hours to read Oppenheimer. Here's the budget. Here's the cast. Are you in or out? And everyone sends the head of the studio to that meeting, and there is a bidding war. And they were right to do that because Oppenheimer made close to $1 billion.
Yep, on a biopic.
Yeah, on a biopic about an American scientist, and won all the Oscars. And so, like, earlier this year, we did Spielberg's Disclosure Day, and we talked a lot about Spielberg in that episode in terms of like Spielberg was once formerly the engine of the industry. He still is. He's still fundamentally like a core part of the industry.
But his name is more than his craft, which is or his current craft, I should say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting is that Nolan today is what Spielberg was 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years ago. And so it's grown because Oppenheimer, was such a phenomenon. Tenet was the one that for me that kind of like signaled perhaps a downturn. But the problem is, well, not the problem. The great thing about Nolan at this point is he moves so quickly.
Yeah.
So he's on to the next thing, and the next thing is so wildly different from the last thing. And I think that is what drives our excitement for him. Like I was standing in line at for a coffee yesterday, and there were like 3 really big gym bros and 2 women. And they were all talking about the Odyssey, like not to each other, but having conversations about the Odyssey. It is a cultural touch point. It's in, like and what's cool about Nolan at this point is like, he dictates where we want to go. Like he says, I want to do the Odyssey, and everyone follows kind of thing.
Well, he dictates where people go for his thing. I think the interesting part is, and maybe this is just a sign of the times, or actually the two movies that have actually sort of, I think, broken containment this year truly have
Obsession and this.
Well, let's go 3 movies then.
Yeah.
But I'm going to back up because Obsession and even Backrooms a little bit their own thing that have broken containment, no question. What I'm talking about is like big budget blockbusters that actually do the work that blockbusters are supposed to do. And it's the Odyssey and it's Project Hail Mary.
Sure.
And regardless of mileage on Project Hail Mary, for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, everyone was talking about Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, I agree.
And now everyone is talking about the Odyssey. And I love that tons of people were talking about Obsession because it absolutely deserves that. But that's kind of like someone coming from the outside and off the top rope. So I think that when we have these big budget movies that do break containment, even though they're supposed to be the ones making the containment.
There's so much money involved. Yeah.
But like, I think then other studios, it seems like, try to do a similar thing, but like Good Fast Cheap Pick 2, and then it doesn't always, like, it doesn't seem to, at least in the last 5-ish years, connect as much as it doesn't.
Well, we joked about, it's probably like culturally inappropriate, but like when we were in Greece, we'd always see like a person that looked like me or a person that looked like my friend Tyson. We'd be like, that's the Temu version of us. And so like, that's the studio, like, the Temu Iliad is about to come out or something like that.
Well, I mean, hell, Elon Musk has thrown his ring into the Temu Odyssey thing, which is to be upset at the Odyssey. Like,
did you read his tweets?
I read like 1 or 2, and I was like, well, this is hot garbage, and then I stopped. The idea of a historically accurate Odyssey is fucking insane for like a lot of different reasons. A, it's a fake story. B, there are historical elements that you could be disappointed you don't see X, Y, and Z. The issue is even Homer is historically inaccurate because he's writing it, 600, like he's writing 600 years ago. He's inserting fucking iron into the Bronze Age places. Like the story itself, based on how it is crafted, is not historically accurate. Plus there's gods. So like there's,
but I think you may be missing the key point here, which is that Elon Musk, despite
well, I was getting to this point.
Yeah. Okay. Despite contradicting the idea that he's a Nazi by that Nazi symbol, keeps saying kind of Nazi shit.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so this is what I was trying to sort of maneuver into that because there are minor things that a history major could say, well, the helmets probably didn't look like this because of X, Y, and Z. And even the boar tusk helmet that Odysseus has in the book, which he doesn't have here, that's not quite accurate, but someone down the line was probably like, that's cool. And those did exist. So fuck it. So yes, you can take, if you want to nitpick all that shit, Agamemnon's armor sure probably didn't look like that. Well, yeah, he didn't probably look like Batman.
Yeah.
But that's not what Elon's talking about. Elon's mad because a trans person and a black person were cast in this movie.
And that is that is the eye roll. That is the moment where you're just like, oh, we shouldn't give this guy oxygen.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying like, the attention whoriveness of this all, you know, like the need to like...
It's Trump at the World Cup, man.
Yeah. It's just the need to insert yourself in like a conversation.
No one can have a moment.
Yeah. It's always got to be about him.
Yeah.
And you know, like for a guy, again, I had this sort of debate with a friend of mine who is an Elon fan and was like very defensive.
Still?
This was about a year ago.
I was going to say, you got to be pretty fucking thick if you are still an Elon fan.
And was like, well, he's not racist. It was just this sort of like, you know, hand symbol. And I was like, yeah, but then, okay.
Say something.
Yeah, add context.
Be like, fuck, sorry, that wasn't what I meant. Holy shit.
Yeah. And then don't add it with like, Christopher Nolan is a worm for like bowing to the woke agenda of Hollywood by inserting a black person and a trans person into this film. And I was like, okay, we don't need to entertain this conversation. You know, like I don't care for what it is you have to say.
Yeah. And also he wants to do it with AI. Oh, and he wants to give Mel Gibson $100 million to make it with AI or something. None of it makes sense.
Yeah. No, because it's not the actual thing.
No, he's shitposting.
It's performative, you know, like shitposting.
It's funny because shitposting in a lot of stuff now actually makes you pretty popular. Like a lot of times shitposting can. Yeah. It feels like every shitpost that Elon does still hits like a wet fart. And like even among like, yeah, there's like the bots in his base, but like that's something that like, look, I don't like anybody in the Trump administration, but they can start and shitpost and like people get on board.
Yeah.
I never see Elon. I can't remember the last time Elon hasn't been ratioed.
Well, but you know what you do when you're getting ratioed is you buy the company, which is what he did.
Right. But he's getting ratioed on his own company. And like, how badly do people have to hate you to get to that point when you can't even get your robots to agree with you? Anyway,
the Odyssey.
Yeah. The real one. The real fake one.
The Homer's epic poem. Could you tell us what IMDb says about it?
I sure can, which is so interesting to go to IMDb to hear what the Odyssey
Hey, look, I didn't read it, so, you know.
After the Trojan War, Odysseus faces a dangerous voyage back to Ithaca, meeting creatures like the Cyclops, Polyphemus, Sirens, and Calypso along the way.
Sounds like he had like a perfect cruise. It was like we had Calypso, we got Circe. Here's my hot take: is there any part, like as I was reading the book and as I was like watching the movie, I was like, it just occurred to me, it was like, is this the biggest bro code cover up of all time? Like, Odysseus is just laying pipe across the Mediterranean and then coming back and making up stories about it. And everyone's like, there was a Cyclops. Sure. Circe turned us into pigs. Yeah, there were sirens. None of us went to it. And I was like,
I tied myself to the mast.
We put beeswax in. We weren't into it. Like in the book, he has children with Circe, you know, with Calypso, I believe I can't remember if he has a child with Calypso as well, but he's like spends like 4 or 5 years and then comes back and was like, she poisoned me. I couldn't remember I couldn't remember my family. And but eventually I fought my way back. And Penelope's like, yep, okay.
Yeah. None of that's really here. He's just a real loyal dude that stayed with a nymph on an island for 7 years.
Yeah.
And she just kept feeding him lotus flower.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I went and saw this at the absolute god tier hookup from friends of the show, Siddhanta Laka and Patrick Willems. I had texted Patrick, like I realized I didn't get my tickets like a month ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, I looked and every IMAX obviously is sold out until next year. And I booked a ticket in the Dolby Atmos theater, which I love as well. And I was going to go see it actually would have been yesterday for when we were recording this. And I was like, hey, man, just checking do you have an extra one? He's like, nah, I'm so sorry. Like we bought these a year ago. And I'm like, got you.
Yeah.
And then the day before the release, he goes, Matt, someone canceled. I was like, what?
You need to be here now wearing a tunic.
Yeah, and I ran. And then we went and saw it, and it was the 2 p.m. Thursday IMAX at the Lincoln, which I believe was the first public IMAX screening of it, which is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
They gave you a big silly ticket, which I have on my wall there, and they gave you a poster, which I gave to my movie buff friend Matt Marchetti when he was up this weekend. And the experience was something, obviously the going to something like that as the first screening, like there's just a ton of Christopher Nolan fans and it like, what was funny too, not in the IMAX theater, but when we were leaving, there were people dressed up as Odyssey characters like it was a Marvel movie. Like there were people in like the right armor and like a bunch of other stuff, and it was and like dressed as like different gods and things. Especially I've been playing a lot of Hades too, so like I'm seeing a lot, like there's a couple things like that. I think some cosplays are reused.
Industry, right?
Yeah. And I liked seeing that, but seeing the movie itself in IMAX specifically, I actually really loved. They showed a bit, I won't spoil anything, of Dune 3 beforehand.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
But the idea of this movie sort of, we were talking a little bit before with Jamie before that we started the show about like what the point, like what you don't need to see this in IMAX, but like when you do, it kind of is a different experience, whether, and that can be good or bad. I'm looking forward to seeing it on a standard screen as well. Because IMAX is a thing that is all encompassing. And it's my opinion that if you don't have the right seat for your right viewing angle of what like the right distance for this thing to get right into your periphery is, then it can be a very distracting experience and you don't actually get the intended thing, even though there's a million seats in that theater. Probably like 30% of them are the ones that work for most people to get that like.
Yeah, no, what's wild is that the front row is entirely sold out.
Which is, wow, I couldn't imagine sitting there for 3 hours. The perspective must be insane.
Robert Pattinson, like with this dome head, like towering over me.
I could not fathom it. Email us in onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com if you've sat in the first few rows for an IMAX movie.
So just to talk format real quick, there are only like 20 or 30 actual IMAX theaters. 41 IMAX theaters in the country that can play it in the original intended format.
41 might be the world, but that just seems too low.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a small number. In New York City, which is where we are, the Lincoln Square IMAX is the only one that actually plays in that. There are a couple of other IMAX branded theaters, which will have like a slightly higher ratio than that, but not the full ratio that they shot. Interestingly, though, Nolan is aware that his movie is going to be projected in 185 and 231. I don't think it's going to be projected 231, but 185 or something like that.
There's a bunch of 70 mils in the theater too, in the city too.
And so he's actually protecting for that frame as well, knowing that it's there. And it's weird. It's kind of like what we do for social media content right now as well, which is that the IMAX format is closer to a vertical format than it is. So it's like there is a point in time where you can watch this on your phone as Nolan intended vertically. But people have been messaging me asking me about like, like a friend messaged me and was like, should I go? I can get a ticket to the IMAX second row. Should I go see that? And I was like, I got to be real upfront with you.
Upfront.
Yeah. Is that there is nothing lost by watching this in a standard theater, wherever you are. The thing that, and I've said for me in the last few Nolan movies, for example, I saw Oppenheimer in IMAX and Oppenheimer in standard projection as well. I enjoyed it more as a standard projection. In that case, the formats were jumping all over the show. In the case of the Odyssey, it's one format the whole way through, which is what is special about it. But I saw it in a standard projection, totally fine. And the way I would hearken it to is that felt like watching a movie. Going to see it in IMAX will feel like going to see an experience. And I'm fine with watching the movie first, then doing the experience later.
Yeah.
So not, like go see it wherever you want to see it. There's nothing lost by it. Have a decent sound system. One thing for me that Nolan's films have is that they kind of have a punishing audio mix. Yeah, like, we've talked about the Bane voice, Dunkirk, Tenet, the sort of thumping Ludwig Göransson score and that sort of thing as well. This one did feel a little loud, and I know that when I go see it in IMAX, I will kind of protect my ears a little bit.
I actually thought the balance in the Lincoln IMAX was very, very good on that day. And it's funny when you go to the movies as much as we do.
Yeah.
Especially when you go to the same theater consistently, whether it's the Regal near us or the Lincoln or whatever, you start to really hone in when something isn't calibrated correctly.
Because you're paying $20 for it now.
Well, not only that, like there's the pay, but like we sit in these rooms probably in similar seats all the time.
Yeah.
So like when I went and saw Master of the Universe in my favorite theater, in Theater 1, the mid channel was fucked. Right. And I was like, what is, I noticed it when they did the sound like graphic at the beginning when like there's a sound going around the room. Yeah. And I was like, oh no. And that made the dialogue really, not that the dialogue for the He-Man movie is the most moving thing in the world, but like it got bugged me. So like we start to notice these things, and I've been in the IMAX theater, I think specifically to see the Super Mario World movie or whatever, not the recent one, the previous one. And it was way too loud. Yeah. It ear hurt loud.
Go back to our Dunkirk episode. Yeah. I won't retell the story, but I emailed IMAX and got a response about the Dunkirk.
But I will say, maybe it was because it was the first screening of this thing on the first day. It was immaculate.
Let's jump over to the Odyssey itself, because it's incredible that Nolan commands such sort of both technical respect and industry respect. Coming back to the Spielberg thing, the reason why Nolan is so important and drives the engine of the industry, so to speak, is that he hits you were talking about the triangle of like effort, too cheap, expensive,
good, fast, cheap,
whatever it is. He's got all three.
Yeah,
which is he's got he's just this rare commodity that has all three. Critics love him, audiences love him, studios love him.
Yeah.
He wins awards, he makes the most money, and audiences turn up to see his movies.
The rumor is, too, that he finished a little early and a little under budget. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but it is the case with, like, auteurs like him and Spielberg and Scorsese to an extent as well, is that these people are so meticulously planned that they do tend to finish early. Like, Spielberg had a reputation for always coming in under budget and on time. And there's a snake eating its own tail kind of thing here too, which is, so Christopher Nolan he plans everything and his team plans everything down to the letter, right?
And so everyone wants to work on it.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah. So that makes a smooth project, which then makes people want to work on a smooth project, which then makes it sort of come back to, well, this project's going to be smoother because I'm running everything very and because that has been not reciprocal, when the thing keeps echoing repeated like across his career, by the time he gets here, everyone wants to work super hard and impress and make something special because they know that the process is also respecting their time because it's so well thought out. And you can see that in the product.
And credit where credit is due. We should shout out Emma Thomas here.
Yeah.
His wife, who has been his producer ever since Following. And, has that respect. And, there are stories of like, no seats on set, no phones on set, no Uggs on set, kind of thing like that comes from a Nolan set. And it's like, there's a world where, like, if Michael Bay was saying that would sound like it was cruel. In the world where Christopher Nolan's product is what the product is, there's a sense that it's a respectful approach.
Well, there's a precedent. Like, do you want to be in a Christopher Nolan movie that feels like all the other Christopher Nolan movies that you've been in? Okay, cool. No one's forcing you to do this. This is how it's going to be done because that's how it's done.
Yeah.
And it's not everything that I've heard, especially like, no phones, no chairs or whatever, like that doesn't seem like the most insane asks. Like, and again, if if there was a production that asked of those things, but then also didn't respect the work that was being made, then yeah, you fight back on those things because fuck it, they're not respecting you. Why would we respect this process? But that's not the case. And
then the other side of that is also everyone's getting paid a lot of money. This is a bit, like it is the engine of the industry, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right, we should talk a little bit about Christopher Nolan and his interests here because he's one of those filmmakers that you and I have both are fortunate to have the opportunity to kind of like watch his work evolve in real time.
Yeah.
And I think the fascinating thing is here is that the interest that he demonstrates in following his first film carry through to the Odyssey and Memento and The Prestige and The Dark Knight and Interstellar and Inception and all those movies kind of follow through into the Odyssey. So this is also why film students love him and film schools love him because he's easy to study. His work is actually, it's very, auteur theory is the thing that you have to learn at some point. It is what dictates how directors kind of formulate their own identity. And he's a really great case study for that. Spielberg was a great case study for that. Scorsese is a great case study for that as well, in that you can see those themes echoed through several films and kind of think through them. So the thing that I kind of zero in on a couple times here is that the Nolan is particularly fascinated with the man haunted by his own actions. So he is particularly, and again, following, his very first movie is about a man who decides to follow people into their houses, meets a mentor who does the same thing, and then eventually causes his own downfall through his own hubris. You see that at Memento is like, he's unleashed something onto the world in terms of like his lack of memory and his need for vengeance has like unleashed something into the world that will come back to haunt him. Batman is a classic case study of a character. The Joker even spells this out, which is that you've changed the tides here.
Yeah.
Like before you, we were just a bunch of crooks. Now we're searching for the same iconography that you are.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer, I've unleashed the nuclear bomb onto the world. How will I live with myself?
Dunkirk, we've released war into the world and the thing. The Prestige, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Tenet.
Yeah. Well, and I think starting from Interstellar particularly, and even Dark Knight Rises in particular, Nolan has had a fascination with the end of civilization as we know it, like the end of like the nature of the end of the civilized world as we know it. Like the end of Oppenheimer is really about Oppenheimer and Einstein kind of like really coming to the understanding that the fire that we've started burns forever. Bane's entire philosophy of life is that the fire rises. Like we will start something, we will start the spark, and it will continue to catch alight whether we want it to or not. Tenet has a nuclear world order that is coming back from time to like give instructions on how not to for this not to happen. Interstellar, no least, and I think.
The Odyssey is a combination of two of his great loves.
Yeah, what was that?
The haunted man and society destroying itself.
Exactly. And I will say, we're like an hour into this, and what I actually thought of the movie was, for the first part, look, the nature of the Odyssey itself is it is episodic, and it is. So
he got to do his other favorite thing and play with time a little bit.
Play with time as well. Tell flashbacks and what have you. And I found that the first, almost in a way, the first 2/3 of the movie were like, oh, this is cool, but I am quite uninterested in all of this.
Same.
Yeah. Same. In terms of like, this is very cool, very spectacular. I like what you're doing here, but I'm not engaged.
I am not moved. I am not emotionally resonanced. Good job, movie. But I was getting a little nervy around the halfway point, and I was like, is this it?
Is it? Yeah, exactly. There's a sort of like, is this it quality to it? I think the showstopper sequence is Cersei, when he meets Cersei and she feeds his men the soup that then allows her to like morph the bodies. That reminded me.
What a great body horror thing.
That was like a terrifying. It reminded me of Miyazaki's Spirited Away when they morph into pigs and that kind of thing. But it was really horrifying, and there were, like up until that point, I was like, I think I can take my son to see this, and then that point, I was like, nope.
Rated R.
It is a terrifying moment. Samantha Morton is wonderful in there, but I was at that point like fairly unmoved by the journey of Odysseus and his trials and tribulations, as I was in the book. To be honest with you, it is my first reading of it, so there's sort of a bit of catch up work to do. But the last third of the movie, when it comes to understanding Odysseus' journey and his relationship to what he has done. Again, the haunted man thing that Nolan does so well. There was a moment where I suddenly realized what Nolan wanted to do with the story, and also like realizing that Nolan essentially steps in here and goes, I can make the Odyssey better. And like I have
crazy.
I have a take on the Odyssey, which I think isn't quite been explored.
It is a current take.
And is a very current modern take. We're talking about that Train Dreams thing. And at the same time, he has both the chutzpah, the technical chops, the writing ability and the understanding of the source material. This is one thing I want to point out to like film students who might be listening to the thing here is Nolan didn't go to film school. He went to, he has an English degree. And so he studied the classics and he studied writing and intent and authorship before. So that's where his like interest comes into play. And what he can do is he understands the material in a way that is able to morph it into something that he wants.
Like a pig.
Yeah. And so I think the ending of the film where he really brings it together, which is that this is a story about the man haunted by his own actions and what he has unleashed onto the world, really works. And it even ties together. The hardest concept that I had to like wrap my head around in the book was the concept of Xenia. They call it Zeus's law in the film, which is this idea that you should be hospitable to strangers who come upon you because they may be a god unto themselves, or that is the mark of civilization as we know it.
It's funny. Zeus's law is this thing that basically tricks humans into being civilized.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a brilliant take, which is that Nolan ties the Trojan horse as a real warping of Zeus's law. We tricked them with a gift, and so we therefore violated Zeus's law, and everything that has happened since then is a further erosion of Zeus's law or Xenia, and it is what. And if you tie it back to modern times, like Nolan's fascination with the end of civilization as we know it, is this idea that we are losing part of what makes us human, which is our ability to be hospitable.
Empathize.
Yeah.
I think the other side of that coin and the dominoes that he sets up in the parts of the first 2/3 of the movie that I didn't realize were dominoes until we get to the end point and he flicks it and you're like, holy shit, this whole thing, holy shit. Like it does really click at the end or near the last third. The other part of this whole element and exercise in adaptation is the gods themselves.
Yeah.
The gods in this, listen, Athena shows up. You actually see Athena. Now, is Athena there or is Athena just in Odysseus's head? In the actual book and the Iliad, actually, if you want to hear about the Iliad on Extra History, we have a 4-part series in Extra Mythology on the Iliad, which we did like 4 or 5 years ago. I just rewatched it. I hate to toot our own horn, but I fucking love that series. If you want more, check out that and anything Overly Sarcastic Productions has done on either of these works. Yeah, but the gods are crazy prevalent in all these stories.
Yeah. In the Odyssey, Poseidon is a character.
And here, the interesting thing is the gods are things that essentially, based on love and or fear, I would say, drive humans to do different things. But that's like they're not actively doing a hand in it. Like, or you could see the way the world is working. The wind's fucking with you. A storm. The sea's calming before a raging thing. And you could be like, oh, well, the gods obviously did this because they want X, Y, and Z. Or it could just be pure shit, bad luck. Or it could be Odysseus punishing himself for what he did. Like there's lots of
laying pipe across the Mediterranean.
Like there's lots of different ways you can sort of square this circle. And I really like that doesn't take away from any of the more mythological creatures in the movie. You got the Cyclops, you got Scylla, you got the Sirens, you got the Lysananians or whatever they were that I can't remember and pronounce their names. Like they're all here and they exist. Like they were physically in the space with all the soldiers.
Yeah.
So there and I love. I don't know. I think Homer and the story that how this is crafted is always so interesting. Like how historians have thought considerably like how like there was a time when you just took a boat out, got lost, landed, saw someone that was slightly taller, and you're like, fuck, this is crazy, and you ran away. Like, this movie also has the vibes
that happens to me on elevators a lot.
Yeah. This movie also has vibes that's going to be very strange of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh,
If Monty Python, I think Movie Bob quoted this, if Monty Python and the Holy Grail wasn't funny, that would be the tone of this movie. Like, Odysseus and his men run away from so much stuff.
When they're in Hades and they decide to run away, I really was chuckling.
The Hades sequence is probably one of my favorites. It was so fucking cool. The tie-in they do to Robert Pattinson's character and like that whole thing is excellent. It ties to the theming of what Nolan thinks is important about like sort of haunted men trying to either make up for or run from their pasts.
I know this will sound like Trump derangement syndrome, but I couldn't help but think about like old bone spurs during the Vietnam War and like the idea of like stealing, sending other soldiers to war kind of thing. Kind of like it just came to my mind as we were thinking about the suitors and Robert Pattinson's character. As well as like the sort of unending war of the Trojan War, like the 10-year sort of endurance tale that was there for the soldiers to endure. I know that'll sound like TDS, which is bullshit, by the way.
TDS, very funny. Or is that TBS? Don't remember, don't care. The way that this movie kind of does a lot of connection, even to the point where I think John Leguizamo actually has some phenomenal stuff as Eumenaeus.
The swineherd.
What a great expansion of that sort of role.
He becomes like the Michael Caine. He's the Alfred to the story.
I think Anne Hathaway also does some incredible work here.
She has probably my favorite line in the movie, which I don't know if is in the book. I did read the book very, very fast. But she says this one line, which I think is incredible. And if it's an expansion, it's amazing. If it's in the book, that's great. But, for 20 years, I sat on this throne and those 20 years are less important than the bristles on your chin. And I was like, what a beautiful line. Like, what a really beautiful encapsulation of the frustration that she has sitting behind her loom, building this thing, realizing that she should be the queen of all of us. But instead, she is just there to be suited, to be to be, I guess, wooed is the word.
I think there's some, it's funny, weirdly, and I know that the Penelope role has been whittled down here because, again, the Odyssey is a huge thing, and this is a just under 3-hour movie because I think that the film reels for IMAX cameras, the apocryphal story is they actually can't support the weight of a movie that's longer than 3 hours.
It also does play into like one of the criticisms of Nolan, which is that every man in his movie is driven by the memory of a wife.
But I will say, I think this is probably his best for what it's worth. I think Anne Hathaway's Penelope is probably the best, the most well-written woman in a Nolan film, which again, it always can be better. But I was actually like, I'm seeing some growth here.
I also think like there's just no getting around what Penelope is in the story. There have been revisions. My friend Alex mentioned that there is a great book about Circe that is like from her point of view as well. And so there are like, the Odyssey is, that many years old that people have got lots of takes on it already.
I think that the way that this movie, the way that it is able to thread all of the things that we've talked about and still feel like essentially like in a fantastical story with a big old Cyclops, feel also modern and at its core of all these dominoes that are setting up and falling and for lack of a better term, the breaking of Zeus's law into our current day and age. You could put that to a million different things. You could tie it to weapons technology, even through Oppenheimer. You could talk through our political process with the way that it's become just a giant, essentially kind of cruel joke a lot of different times. Like there's so much that this movie is saying in an other like. And I think this sort of brings me to my final thought on the movie, but also kind of the Odyssey in general. The Odyssey is a really interesting work in and of itself because it can be read and adapted and make sense in a lot of different contexts and a lot of different time periods. I think that's why it has survived as long as it has. I think, and I also think that giving that type of story that is so well suited for adaptation to Christopher Nolan, who, again, loves The Haunted Man, loves the idea of society falling apart and why that might be, and loves a little bit of flashback time manipulation. I think that is just such an exciting combination to sort of throw together with this particular work. And I love that this is now going to be, I'm so glad it's good, because I love that this is going to be a touch point for this piece of work for a couple hundred years at this point.
I'd even go just a little bit slightly further on that, which is that what is interesting about Nolan, and I think why audiences respond to him so well, is that his work doesn't treat the audience as commodities. You know, like his work is complicated. Like Tenet is a complicated film, and people are willing to go along for the ride. Dunkirk is a complicated movie, and people are willing to go along for the ride. Interstellar is a complicated movie, and people are willing to go along for the ride. And I think audiences respond to the idea, and this is maybe where the Marvel thing kind of like comparison comes into play, which is that Marvel's approach to storytelling in that respect treats the audience like you're buying a hot dog at a stadium game, right? You know, like it's like
they make it as easy as humanly possible.
Exactly.
And it's not, and I won't even say that Nolan makes it hard.
But he is like, I'm not going to treat you like a child in this. I'm interested in these things, and I think you will be too. And and you know, like Batman deals with a lot of complicated ideas, and it's like, but I think you'll be interested in this as well. And you know, like to the film students who sort of thinking about Nolan, you know, who will be studying Nolan, you know, just remembering that he didn't go to film school. What he's interested in is literature in terms of its meaning. And, you know, like a good example of this is the fact that, like, why did Man of Steel not work as well for a lot of people, whereas Batman Begins did? Because they kind of do a lot of similar work. And he's a producer on Man of Steel and picked Zack Snyder for that. But if you look at Zack Snyder's Watchmen as well, which does have some interesting adaptations, but it feels like it's not as in touch with the material as someone like Nolan would be. And you know, like you can even see when Damon Lindelof took Watchmen and made it into a series, it's like that's someone who's really in touch with the material, confidently enough to be like,
I'm going to tell you what happens next.
I can adapt it and make it better.
Yeah.
I have my own spin on this. And that's really, when it comes to auteur theory or, you know, filmmakers in general, that is actually what is at the heart of it, is like, they're so intimately aware of the source that they can also then flow with it and move it and maneuver it.
I think you might have just cracked something that makes sort of a filmmaker last in the legacy of like
something to say,
something to say, but also like I think. Let me go down the line. Something to say is definitely needed. Spielberg, Nolan, and I'll even say Snyder, Bay. They all have something to say. And you know what? They're going to fucking say it. Like all of them are going to say it.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is the way that those things are said. I think that Spielberg and Nolan essentially say the things that they want to say in a nothing is truly this, but I'll say it as close as humanly possible, in a timeless way. There is a way that they put something together that they talk to the audience, like you said, kind of like an adult, not going crazy complicated, but not treating them like a child. And it feels like it is a way that a human being would talk for countless ages. I feel like for someone like Snyder and Bay, they, I think, speak very clearly in the methodology of what they say to the specific time period when they were the most popular. I think that in the moments of like even the Transformer movies or the DCU, in that particular moment, they were the voice because that was the voice of the culture, air quotes. But it's not a lasting one, and it changes. And I think when you're that sort of folk, and I think you could say this with a lot of different directors, I'm just sort of using these two as an example. I think with Spielberg and Nolan and directors of that ilk, not only do they all have something to say, but the way that they say it feels more like a timeless way a story is told to a human, and it is not. It's something that I actually...
It's the Odyssey. It's Homer telling the story.
I struggle with this in my work.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes I inject my take even in like intonation or something like that, and it feels good in the moment. But sometimes I'll go back and listen to it like years later. I'm like, oh, well, I should have read that more straight. I should have done this because that felt right 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right now. And if I had done it more straight, if I had done it cleaner, it would have reached more audiences for a longer period of time. And I think that Nolan and Spielberg too, and many others in that sort of ilk, that's something that is really cool about their work, is that it feels like it'll last longer because not only is there something to say, the way that it is said feels universal.
And I'll say a circle this around like the things I've done, which are nowhere near in the same ilk.
You didn't do the Odyssey?
No, or in the same ilk. But I will say the most successful things that I've done, if I rewatch them now, I go, the feeling that I get from this is very honest and sincere about the way I felt at that moment.
Yeah.
And I think with Nolan and Spielberg and Scorsese and other filmmakers that we love on the show, there's both a sincerity to it in terms of like they really believe the things that they're saying, and B, they're not afraid of the audience. You know, like there's a sense that when I watch lesser movies, I won't say which genre or anything like that.
Just say the MCU because that's filmmaking by committee. Like truly.
But in great moments,
that comes from fear.
There are moments where
it works.
The MCU, like for example, in Endgame, when the snap happens, where it's like they are pushing the audience and they're not afraid of where the audience is going to go at this moment. But then there are other moments, like in Far From Home, was it the last Spider-Man movie?
Yep.
Where
No Way Home.
No Way Home, where I feel like it's not that they're afraid of the audience, but they're like, we're just playing to the audience. And I feel like what makes Nolan interesting in that respect is that he is kind of saying, these are the things I'm interested in. I'm very sincere about it. I hope you will be too. Like that's what it is. And
I get where you're going. Yeah. I'm not going to bore the audience with my counter argument for No Way Home, but I get that the point you're trying to make, and I agree with it.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it timeless, is that, go back. I love this moment so much because it reminds me, in terms of like echoes through time. There's a couple of them in the movie following. When they go up this wall, you see the Batman logo in this, and it becomes the thing. But in the Memento DVD extras, there is a video. It's famous. You can find it on the internet now, where Christopher Nolan is explaining the timeline of Memento forwards and backwards. And he's like a professor he's doing it on a whiteboard. And he's
I think I've seen this.
Yeah. He's showing the circle and what have you. It's so much like Oppenheimer at the table explaining quantum theory, like the idea that like two things can be true at once, and it doesn't make sense, but it does.
Yeah.
This is so, like that's the way he navigates his work to the audience. Fair criticisms. I think there are moments where the writing is very clunky. I think sometimes individual scenes in Nolan's work are incredibly like they end with like a one-liner that is like really hackney and on the nose, but he has this like momentum to his films where it's like they just build and build and build upon each other, where you can't really slow down to watch that.
It's funny. The three Nolan films I do not particularly like are The Dark Knight Rises. Every time I watch it, I like it less.
Yeah.
I don't like Dunkirk.
Yeah.
I don't like the structure of it, and I had a hard time even following it or keeping interest in it. And I don't really like Tenet.
Mm-hmm.
I like most of Interstellar. I just don't like the ending. I'm not going to count that one. But what I think, like, even in all of those movies, I never felt like what I didn't like about them was a lack of choice or skill. I was just like, I
didn't vibe with this moment.
Yeah, I did not like this because of X, right? And what I think is interesting is I think the Odyssey, for me, I can only speak to, I think it is the exact balance of what I like in a Nolan movie with the things that I like, and the way that he talks and the way that he presents information and the way, like, I think it is this is my favorite Nolan film probably since The Dark Knight or Inception, I would say, or The Prestige. The Prestige is so good.
Yeah.
And I was so happy, especially after that midpoint, when I'm like, this sure is okay.
It's like very episodic.
But what I really liked about that is like, it never felt like, even when I thought that the movie was kind of like whatever and fine, I never felt like I'm waiting for the setup to be finished. Like, it still felt like the movie. It just felt like an okay movie. Yeah. And then when you realize that okay movie is the linchpin and the dominoes being set up for what this movie is actually about, that is when it starts to feel something special for me. So like, that's kind of my final thought. I think maybe you should go see The Odyssey.
It's great. And like I say, I think he is certainly the engine of our time. As we saw when we watched Disclosure Day earlier this year and reading some of the post reviews analysis of Disclosure Day, it's interesting that like there will be a time when Nolan will no longer be the engine, but right now he's at the peak of his powers. Like the reason The Odyssey exists is because Oppenheimer was such a huge success. And at this point, if Nolan decides he wants to leave Universal to make a he'd make a Fast and the Furious movie before he leaves Universal.
Yeah, he loves Fast and
He
Furious.
loves Fast and the Furious. He loves Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
Like which studio at this point is going to say no to whatever Christopher Nolan wants? And I think it is genuinely because audiences will show up for him, critics will show up for him, and awards will show up for him.
Yeah.
Like he's got all three working, in tangent right now. I said it, I think the last time with Oppenheimer is like, he is a DJ Khaled song. All he does is win. Like at this point.
Sure. I don't like putting DJ Khaled and Christopher Nolan in the same thing. But
look, he did it with Tokyo Drift. So
I guess. Anyway, this has been the only podcast about the film The Odyssey. Shahir, when you are not stranded in Greece, just eating lotus flower salads, where can folks find you?
Look, I would stay there in a heartbeat, by the way. I would go back to Greece right now. So you can find me flying Aegean Airlines on my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA. Matt, when you are stabbing the one-eyed monster, where can people find you?
Wow, you can find me just being nobody over at my websites, Extra History and Extra Credits over on the YouTube machines. By this point, we're just wrapping up our episodes on the Grant administration and the many corruptions in that. It's very, very fun. And then I believe we have a couple Extra History completes that have just come out. We just did one on, we just released some with additional context on the Haitian Revolution. So go check that out. Ooh, and on the credits side, we did one. I did a quick episode about the Sony's killing of physical media, which you were gone. We didn't get to talk about. We'll talk about that at some point. And then we did one where Jeff had a terrifying prospect that we are predicting, and we're calling it now, even though we don't want it to happen. Disney will buy Epic, the company who runs Unreal and has Fortnite and all those things. We did an episode laying out all of the reasons why we think that is the most logical conclusion in this nightmare of consolidation.
Yep. It's certainly, I think Unity bought Weta Digital recently in a huge thing. So there's certainly opportunities for that. And Fortnite is such a huge property. Just real quick, when I mentioned in Greece that there didn't seem to be an interest in the Odyssey coming there. There wasn't like billboards or anything like that. You know what people were really excited for in Greece?
What?
Like, and I'm talking like cab drivers everywhere that we talked about were like, I'm going to take 2 or 3 days off of this, is Grand Theft Auto 6.
I mean, that's going to be
the biggest thing on the, like my impression while I was in Greece,
the biggest thing on the planet
was the biggest thing on the planet.
And it sucks because they too are not going to be releasing any physical version of the game. There's a lot I don't want to get into that. That's a whole nother conversation. Rockstar is, there's not a lot anyone can do for anything that they don't like about it. Maybe we'll talk about that as another point, because like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be a cultural weird touch point unlike anything I think we've ever seen. I think it's going to blow Grand Theft Auto 5 out of the water for the biggest sort of multimedia project.
Pop culture project on the planet. Right.
So that's going to be very interesting. Maybe we find something to talk about there as well. Next week, because this is in the middle of the Cusack-assance, you're going to be getting Con Air.
And then Spider-Man,
Brand New Day.
At some point like that. And then we'll return to our normal programming. Unless we can convince John Cusack to come on the show.
Look, if you know him, email us in onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to CC him and us. And then maybe he'll come on and we could do Serendipity or something.
Oh my God, I would love that.
We put recursive or multiple John Cusacks at the same time would be.
Oh, right. Yeah. Is that what happens in Serendipity?
No, but I just think it'd be fun.
I only think about that. I think we should do it at Serendipity.
You know why I said that? In my head, for whatever reason, I got that mixed up with Multiplicity, which is not a John Cusack. It's Michael Keaton movie, but
that's the Keaton cousin.
The Keaton Club.
Yeah.
We gotta go.
Okay, everyone.
Bye. Everyone.